I have a confession to make. When I first saw The Phantom Menace, I actually kinda liked it. Maybe it was the fact that I was watching it at 3 a.m. It released on my girlfriend's birthday, and she had become a huge fan of the franchise. So I decided to get us tickets at the Man's Chinese Theater. They had gone on sale about a week before release, so I had to go wait in line on a weekday. I wound up missing work and nearly got fired. It was an 8-hour wait. The line went halfway around a huge block, about a half a mile in distance, and it's the only line I've ever been in that went backward. It did this because many people who had shown up early were holding places for their friends. People were selling water bottles and t-shirts which read Titanic Buster. By the time I got to the front, I considered making a joke and saying I wanted tickets to The Matrix. I chickened out because I was scared they would take me seriously. We had hoped to get tickets to the first showing, but they had sold out by the time I got to the front, so 3 a.m. it was. That wound up being an interesting time because we saw people coming out of the first showing. It was a mixed bag of joy and confusion. As the film started, there was cheering and people waving their lightsabers. People clapped at the introduction of each character the way some people do at Broadway plays, but it quieted down after a while. When we came out of the theater, the sun was rising, and we felt like we had been on an all-night bender. But as I thought about it, and saw it again, I was able to unravel my thoughts on it. There were clear problems with it. Jar Jar wasn't even the worst part of the movie. However, I didn't see it as a complete film. It was the first third of a story, an introduction. And what it was introducing was something hidden, something devious. Like the title indicated, it was the Phantom Menace. I knew Palpatine was the bad guy only because of the action figure I had gotten as a kid. And what I could see he was doing was something far more interesting than I had expected. A devious takeover from inside the Senate. If this series could continue with this sort of underhanded political intrigue, Lucas would really have something special on his hands. When I first saw this arc, the beginning was moving and emotional. When I saw it the second time, it nearly broke me. The reason was because my own mother had died in the interim. I don't know if these writers had the same experience and wrote from it, but they nailed the emotions. They begin with a point of view shot through B's eye. It appears to be looking through tears, which turn out to be liquid from a cup on its head. Like with its sounds and motions, this is a perfect way to create a feeling for the audience while still making sense within its world. When we look at the droid, it's close in on the eye we were just looking through, and if you look very closely, you can see the droid is moving slightly. Again, droids don't breathe, but giving it that slight motion gives us the feeling that it's a breathing being, even though it isn't. And then, upon hearing its name, B begins to shake. Cutting further away, we find that it's sitting next to Marva's chair. This was what really got me. I don't know if the writers have lost a parent or other loved one, but they nailed it. There's something about a person's chair that, when they're gone, holds extra meaning, especially when they're older. That's where they spent most of their time, so having B loyally sitting by it is about the most heartbreaking and truthful thing they could do. It also says something about our pets when we pass on, something that doesn't often get explored. I even didn't think about it with my mother's cat until I took her clothes out of the closet and laid them down. Her cat smelled them, immediately crawled up onto them, and laid down. Throughout the series, they've built up the town of Ferrix as a real place with a culture all its own, almost a character in itself. They continue with the funeral service and what they do with their dead, turning them into bricks and making them a permanent part of the town. This will give a new perspective of the town every time we see it, on every viewing. Now we see the town, we don't just see buildings. We see all the people of the town who came before. But first, the screenwriters have the challenge of expressing this through story. In a book, one can simply explain this, but in a show or movie, it must be expressed by characters organically. This typically needs to be done with someone who doesn't know the information, so as it is explained to that person, it is also explained to the audience. In this case, it is the Imperials, and Dedra serves as the audience learning this fact. Here, you can see the strength of doing this way because not only do we learn the information we are going to need for the rest of the arc, But we also see that Dedra is slightly moved by the sentiment.
You become a block of Ferrix brick.
And then what?
They find you a wall.
Episode 11 had been building up the characters, their motivations, and how they are getting to Ferrix. In Episode 12, they are getting into their final positions. It begins with the title sequence and an out-of-tune marching band, much like the one which will be leading the procession. And then we see their arrivals and hear them discuss their plans. This was why some people who are used to Star Wars being more childish call it boring. They're not used to setup, but rather easily recognizable good guys and bad guys going after each other. But when you want truly complex characters at odds with one another, when you want the shades of gray blurred, you do this. Everyone's motivation is established to the point where you're rooting for all of them, yet most of them are out to kill our titular character, even the so-called good guys. And we've seen how willing most of them are to do it through the example of Krieger. Luthen has shown a willingness to let him and 50 men be caught in an Imperial trap, and the other side is made up of those Imperials who helped set the trap. Cassian does show up, and the first thing he does is visit Clem's brick. And we get a flashback where he learned one of the most important lessons of the series, to not ignore what is just beneath your nose.
Just sitting there. 500 credits each. People don't look down the way they should. They don't look down, they don't look past the rust.
This lesson is what launched the events in the first place, why Cassian was making money off of these parts, and how he was able to steal them.
You just walk in like you belong.
But it's also a theme regarding the characters. These are the ones who are overlooked, not the big heroes who blew up the Death Star. The ones who launched the whole thing, but wind up forgotten. It's also the theme of the smart characters, not just Cassian and the Rebels, but Cyril and Dedra. They've been trying to get their bosses to pay attention to the small things, but no one has been listening to them, to their detriment. It also shows why Cassian warmed up to Nemik when he brought out the old navigational equipment. Some of what Nemik said is very similar to what Clem, the man whose name Cassian is using on the mission, taught Cassian when Cassian was Nemik's age.
One of the best navigational tools ever built. Can't be jammed or intercepted. Something breaks, you can fix it yourself.
Hard to learn.
Yes, but once you've mastered it, you're free.
Cassian then goes to visit Bix, but she's been taken by the Empire. And it's interesting to note that he is not yet fully invested in the rebellion, because part of the point of this show is to display how much a person, even a heroic person, has to be pushed to the edge personally before taking action. It's a bit of a cynical statement, but think about it. We all might see ourselves as great heroes in situations like this, jumping into action when needed. But, just as Luthen said, in order to truly commit yourself to a cause like this, you will sacrifice everything. Think about everything in your life, everything you are planning to do over the next few years. Now think about all that disappearing. That is the reality of it, and why it takes being pushed to the extremes for some to finally cross over. And even for Cassian, it might not have happened but for the manifesto that was left for him in that beautiful audio narration, where Nemik describes how natural the desire for freedom is, and how much effort tyranny takes.
The Imperial need for control is so desperate because it is so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks. It leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear.
This is the true setup for the climax, and is the perfect example for my biggest problem with the series, its title. Though Andor is the main character who gets pushed to rebellion, it is about so much more. It is about the birth of rebellion. And not just the one in Star Wars. I mean in any war, real or imagined. This series explores what a tyrannical government does to push people to the point where they are willing to give up everything to fight it. It is about so much more than one man, or one series, or one franchise. It's about the very essence of rebellion itself. The next day he sneaks in through a grating, which works in itself, but the show did something a bit more clever. They set it up as Marva being the one who cleared the way.
She fell trying to pry open the Aldrich's floodgate.
She gonna flush them out?
No. She wanted to see if the tunnel under the hotel was still open.
Why?
So the rebellion can sneak in and take them by surprise.
So Cassian was able to get back in because of his mother, who had a sense he would come back through that way. A mother knows her son. And speaking of a mother and her son, I don't know who else needed to hear these lines, but I sure as hell did.
Tell him he knows everything he needs to know and feels everything he needs to feel. And when the day comes that those two pull together, he will be an unstoppable force for good. Tell him I love him more than anything he could ever do wrong.
Thank you, Tony Gilroy, for nailing it on the head. Also, I know these two are on their way to capture Andor, but everyone should freaking have a friend like Linus. So by the time we get to the final build-up, we're halfway through the episode. Again, this is how you set everything up effectively to have all the pieces in motion. Now as we move into this final act, we can build the tension, then watch the action and know who and why. This is about quality, not quantity. They also keep cutting to the boy who we saw build a bomb earlier. This goes back to the old adage Hitchcock said, "There is no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it." And because we know this boy has built a bomb, he has it with him. The tension rises each time we see him, and each time we see his anger building. Anyway, again, as this show has done so many times, it's allowing something happening in the story to provide a separate feeling outside of it. The music, while being absolutely believable as a funeral dirge, is also unsettling, like something you might hear in a horror film. It goes along perfectly with the suspense that's being built as all our characters get into place. Knowing the motivations of everyone lets us know just who will be conflicting with whom, and what to be wary of. And finally, the pause. The short quiet before the storm, like Marva warned about in an earlier episode.
Gets to you, doesn't it? That's what a reckoning sounds like. You wanted to stop, but it just keeps coming. It's when it stops. That's when you really want to start to fret.
Why? What happens then?
And now we arrive at Marva's monologue, the spark that lights the fire. The monologue uses the same basic structure as the others. It begins with basic facts and information, unpretentious and to the point. But then she tells us a story to bring it all home. And that message, like Luthen's, like Kino's, goes beyond the boundaries of the series. It's one of the Empire, but also any tyrannical power which sucks away the rights of its citizens bit by bit. And finally, she explains how it happens, both in the fictional story and in real life. And then the Imperial Commander covers it with his cape, but he isn't able to cover the whole thing. He can't stop the message.
Fight the Empire!
By the way, this cape was also set up in an earlier episode. He asked his commanding officer if he could have a rank which allows the cape.
Could I be made prefect? The title, I know it doesn't come with extra pay. You can wear a ball gown if you'd like.
Just for the prestige. No extra pay or rank, just prestige. There's a certain poetry in that desire for prestige trying to silence this call to rebellious action. And then he commits the ultimate sin. He knocks over B. Nobody pushes B. And Brasso's first smackdown is with Marva's brick, essentially bringing her into the fight and starting the brawl. And after a couple minutes of the fight, at last the bomb is thrown, setting off all-out hostilities beyond the point of no return. It is the true birth of rebellion. It's also time for the Stormtrooper to fly. I want that Gongringer's action figure with exciting kick action! And through all this, the target who everyone has come to kill is slipping through their fingers. He used the tunnels Marva had cleared for him, for the rebellion. He's taken pics to the others to get away.
The moment you get over the water, you climb.
He has business to do. He's come all the way now, and he's ready to meet his destiny.
Kill me. Or take me in.
A great line to end the season, but I think an equally great one was where Andor began the escape, when he went to rescue Bix.
Marva was here.
Wasn't she great?
This has been part 4 of an 8-part series I am doing on Andor. I'm covering every arc, with the videos coming out on the 1st of the month. At least, that's the current plan. I really appreciate all of you who have been sticking through this with me. I never expected this series to take off so quickly, and with so many kind comments. Thank you. And if you enjoy my views on storytelling, you may want to take a look at my books. The link is in the description. If you're a Star Wars fan, you may enjoy Relic Worlds. Additionally, if any of you are cat fans, we have a Kickstarter going until November 22nd for Sanctuary, the game of cat rescue. The link for it is below. Thank you all for watching, and happy travels, everyone.